correct, as a result of your practice, dharana will gradually become dhyana. Dharana is concentration, one-pointed focus, while dhyana is what is considered to be actual meditation. And as you know, you cannot just sit down and say, well, yesterday I practiced dharana, today I'm going to do dhyana, as if you were doing tree pose yesterday and today the triangle. It doesn't work like that. Dhyana is just a consequence of increasing consistent practice of dharana, and the quality of concentration improves as a result of that, and at some point what occurs can be called dhyana. I explained that a little bit also in the subject of desha, the concept of desha in the first handout. And technically, real meditation, dhyana, is happening or occurring when you have no thought for 11 seconds at a time. But then repeated in consecutive spans of 11 seconds of time, and maintained for a longer stretch of time. So just one time, 11 seconds of thoughtlessness, that is not dhyana. It is at least 11 seconds of total concentration, interrupted by some whirl of energy. You have either some feeling, you have some memory that will trigger some kind of thought. You have become so sensitive and so sharp that you step in and say, no, not now, go back. And you quickly go back, almost intuitively, you go back to that thoughtless state for another 11 seconds at least. And 11 seconds you say, wow, 11 seconds, what's 11 seconds? But 11 seconds being thoughtless is indeed almost impossible and requires lots of practice. And practice is the only way to build better quality of meditation, because you need to build momentum. You already notice when you practice asana, that is on a more gross level than meditation. When you practice asana, and you do that 5-6 days a week, you feel more and more strength, more and more. You feel more and more one with the asana the asanas you are practicing. It becomes kind of easy. Sukha occurs. If there comes a period in your life that you're not able to practice, you also feel that you lose your connection with the poses. Physically, weakness starts to occur, flexibility starts to deteriorate. You're not just so much connected anymore. This is even much more sensitive when it comes to meditation. If you meditate regularly, and everybody who has given it a chance to practice for a couple of weeks or so every day, you've noticed that you build enormous momentum, enormous amounts of energy are circling around that you've never experienced before. And when you stop meditating regularly again, you lose that momentum, and you can only get it back by just getting back into practice again, meditating regularly. If possible, try to make some time for this on a regular basis. Not necessarily 7 days a week, but at least a couple of times or so a week. In the third module, we learn samadhi, which is contemplation. In samadhi, you use the condition built in dhyana to actually steer it in a certain direction. Building rajas upon sattva, leading to joy or ecstasy. Building tamas upon sattva, leading to bliss. Then you have pure sattva, which is sheer being or peace. And the fourth samadhi is a very dynamic one, in which you allow your thoughts to flow freely without interfering, and you become basically a troubleshooter, or what it leads to indeed is that you develop the very deep ability to come to the essence of things. And when you develop the ability to come to the essence of things, problems are solved. Not by thinking, but by feeling. And you do that by being silent. In your silence, you become one with the issue you're dealing with. It can be a problem, a conflict, but it can also be a project you're working on. Any kind of project that is complex. Insight is gained, deep insight is gained in the fourth samadhi. So it's a dynamic samadhi. And concerning asana, in the last module, we go back to the basic poses again, but the time we stay in the poses will increase considerably. Some poses even up to 12 minutes or so. And starting with the basic poses again, we will then also, of course, pay attention to the alignment again, which you have forgotten over time, lost over time, and from then on, that the proper alignment will remain ingrained in you. And you will never forget anymore how it is done correctly. So that's a layout of the course, roughly. Do you have any questions, maybe? Okay. The first file was quite long, 8 pages, because I merged actually 2 subjects into one, Sambhavi Mudra and Desha. The exercises also are all mentioned, and often with comment, so that you also become more aware of the details of the poses, and because you have those files in your computer, you will always carry that with you and always be able to refer to those. Did somebody, I have lesson 81 here. We can start with Savichara Samadhi today. You want me to make a copy? No? How come this is only 4 pages?
That's it.
Oh, okay. I don't really need it, actually. I don't know if you need it. Okay. So the first thing we do or discuss today is introduction into the practice of dharana. When you started with the basic course, surely you have heard about meditation and maybe had an interest in it also, and thought that you can just learn a technique, sit on your cushion and start meditating. By now you already know that that is not the case. So in the basic course, for the whole course, you're not instructed to meditate. You are asked to simply observe. The whole science of yoga, all those pages, all those books, is actually all designed to help you come to the point that you can actually meditate. Why do you need so much insight, so much information? Because the human being is a very complex being. There are so many hidden aspects, so many subtle aspects that we are not aware of when we start with the basic course. We first have to become aware, starting with the most gross level, in this case, which is our thoughts. Many people have no idea that they have thoughts 24 hours a day without interruption. So first you have to just look inside, observe, and also learn to feel. We have to make a switch from thinking to feeling. The basic course is designed to start that process. And in the second or third class or so, I introduced then the concept of nada. You can start gradually in your observations, you can start listening to nada, using it as an anchor to come back each time when you feel distracted. For the rest, basically you are just sitting there feeling, observing, slowly but certainly becoming aware, basically building a whole subtle framework of awareness that didn't exist before. Now that we have become aware of our thoughts, our restlessness, we have become aware of the activity in the body, from the tailbone up to the crown chakra, up to the crown. We have become aware of those energies using exercises like observing what happens when you go to the toilet, for example. Observe what happens when you get angry, or when you fall in love, or when you're hungry, or etc. You have become familiar with those worlds of energy that were there before, but were not really acknowledged, not really recognized. It is all this energetic activity of all your emotions, instincts, fear, desire, sexuality, that are the cause of your distractions. And you have become familiar with those to some point. And so now it is time to say, it's enough. You know what distracts you, and from today you say, when you meditate, I will not be distracted anymore. I will not allow myself to be distracted anymore. when you become distracted, you make the conscious decision that you don't want to be distracted. So you quickly look at the nature of the distraction. That is part of the process in order to grow, to develop more insight. So you quickly look at the nature of the distraction. But then you say, okay, I know what this is about. I don't need this now. I go back to what I set out to do, which is concentration. But not just concentration, you set yourself a boundary. In the basic course, at some point, maybe not in all the courses, there are people here from 3-4 different courses, but at some point I have told you, when you meditate at home, you must set yourself a time. Because if you meditate setting yourself no time, just thinking, I will just see where it goes, within 5 minutes, your mind has come up with all kinds of excuses to just stop meditating. Anything. The cat walking around the room, you think, oh my God, I'm so distracted by the cat. Well, let's just quit it and try again tomorrow. Or there is a truck or construction equipment in the street that is making noise, and you sit on your cushion and you hear the noise and you say, oh, what a noise, let's just quit and try again tomorrow. This is what happens if you don't set yourself a time. So when you decide to meditate, Nika, come a little bit closer. Come a little bit closer. Nika, come a little bit closer. When you set yourself a time to meditate, it doesn't matter how long, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, doesn't matter how long, but you must set yourself a time. And then you sit on your cushion and you do not come off your cushion before that time has passed. Why is this important? Because now you are sitting there, your mind is coming up with all kinds of excuses to stop, and you say, no, it's not finished yet. And as a result of this, you become so conscious of the tricks that your mind is playing with you to try to make you do something that you consciously decided not to do. It is this consciousness that is so important to gain ability to meditate, but also to gain concentration power. And it is the same with what is called desha. Like setting a time for yourself, you also have to set yourself a boundary. Now, the concept of desha is a little bit superficial. It says that you can set your boundary at the edges of this room, the boundaries of this room. Or you can choose the boundaries of this whole building. Or you can choose the boundaries of this block, or Yoido, or Seoul, or Korea. So any boundary is in fact a desha. But if you set, the trouble already starts when you make this room your desha. Because the noise from the air conditioner is in this room. And that is a distraction if you allow that to be. So you set yourself as desha, this room. It includes the noise from the air ducts, the air conditioner. So in a practical sense, desha is, in our case, eventually simply nada. And that is, of course, a very, very tiny boundary that doesn't leave much room. When meditate, you set nada as your boundary, your desha. You start basically playing a game. The boundary is so small that if you think of in terms of failure and success, you will be or become a total failure. And we don't live like this anymore. We don't practice like this anymore. We have learned to play. The element of playing or the art of playing is crucial in your development, because playing leads to circulation, free circulation and even acceleration of energy. While if you take it too serious, you lose playful attitude, you think in terms of failure and success, you build a field of tension that will only lead to you not being able to meditate. We have learned that when you're dealing with a rebellious child, if you try to bring the child under control with a harsh hand, the child will only become more rebellious. And it is the same with meditation. And most human beings are harsher upon themselves than other people in their environment would do. Consciously, but most likely subconsciously. If you take the rebellious child by the hand, gently, friendly, and you go along with on that child's wavelength, you come down to that child's wavelength, you gently guide the child to where you want it to be, you're much more likely to succeed. The rebellion will fizzle out and the child will become malleable, obedient. It is even more so with the mind, which is constantly rebelling, which is constantly unruly. So you set yourself the boundary of desha, the boundary of nada as a desha, and you simply go from there. You listen to nada, you are conscious of the distraction, more and more so, and the moment that you're conscious of a distraction, you simply ignore it and go back. Hong Kong. I saw something flying down the stairs. Welcome. At some point, at several points, it has been mentioned several times, people have said, while I meditate, there is this important thought that is coming up. And I don't want to let it go because I think it is important. I need to look at it. I need to explore it. That seems to be a valid argument to stop meditating and follow the thoughts. My answer, do you remember my answer to that? My answer to that has been, let it go. Because the thought is indeed very valuable, but the moment that you step in, take charge of the thoughts will not be valuable anymore. They have no valuable information anymore because the thought becomes colored by your experiences, by your memory, by your conditioning. And there will be no new insights anymore the moment that you stop meditating and interfere. It is very understandable that you want to interfere, and this is science of soul for sure, because you are afraid that it will slip away. Do not be afraid. Let it go, and you will see that this insight you receive there will become even bigger and even more valuable. But stay on course with your concentration. Go back to nada, in spite of the value you think the thought has. The thought is valuable. The insight, the deep insight is valuable. This is how you have realizations, deep understanding of the essence of things, like I explained with Vitakka Samadhi. But the moment you interfere, you think that you are exploring the thought, but it is gone. And this ability to let go will become one of your big weapons in life. It will develop a quality in you that most people don't possess. And that is to come without coloring, without condition, to the deepest essence of matter. Any matter, including people, including conflicts, but also projects, your work, your relationship, etc. Life on a whole, as a whole. Your consciousness, as a result, will become so wide that you truly become royal, that you truly become a king, which is Raja Yoga, of course. What is the importance of dharana? It has no importance. No. What happens, you must have experienced this, is that as a result of your framework of practice, you started with yama niyama, which helped you to deal with distortions in your energy household, which helped you to clean up blockages in your energy circulation and to help you prevent making new blockages in your energy circulation. With yama niyama, you have already started conserving energy, leading to the build-up of larger amounts of energy in you. You then had asana, austerity on physical level. And asana we practice in such way that it leads to strength on a quite high level. And strength is energy. Energy is strength. So every step you took has led to more and more strength, energy. And because of the very typical nature of our practice, it is not just energy, Rajas, Shakti, but it is energy of a very special quality. It is harmonious energy, Sattva. With your concentration on nada, intense concentration on nada, you bring this intensity and level of strength and energy to even higher levels than you've done based on the framework that went before Dharana, Dhyana. Because the energy that you have saved through Yama Niyama, clearing up blockages and preventing new blockages, the energy you have built through the practice of austerity in asana, that energy is accelerated to enormous height when you manage to concentrate intensely for extended periods of time. The longer, the higher the acceleration. If you have experienced this, you have become totally addicted. You have felt the enormous power lying within that. You have felt that you do not exist only out of a physical body. You notice that you are much, much bigger than that. You are a ball of energy, in fact. And you truly feel that when you intensely concentrate. And that acceleration of energy is not only marvelous, it enables you to outdo yourself. It enables you to expand your boundaries. It enables you to do, on all levels of your being, to do things you never thought possible. Questions about Desha?
So like if you just focus on the tip of your nose, something to that's a Desha, that would be considered a Desha.
Yep. Yep.
Can you think of it like a battle between the setting in order to increase your concentration?
Say again?
If thinking about it as like a boundary that you're setting, the purpose is to just increase your concentration, right? That's why you're setting the boundary, so you know you step outside of the boundary.
You set the boundary because you need something to come back to.
Yeah, so you're aware when you go outside the boundary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you immediately decide you don't want to go there and you come back.
Yeah.
But this is truly mind control. So meditation, like I mentioned before, I think it's a long time ago since I checked last time, like 10, 12 years ago or so. The last time I checked, meditation in the dictionary was described as free flow of the mind or free flow of thoughts. And it is not. Meditation is only possible with thought control. And to come to thought control, I haven't mentioned the word yet, but of course you use pratyahara. you notice the distraction and you say, this is not what I intended to do. So you detach from the distraction, the thought, the feeling, whatever, the vision, and you just stubbornly come back to your desha, to your whatever point of your nose or nada, but stubbornly come back again and again. Without much ado about nothing. You just come back again and again. And that will lead to real mind control, thought control. Sambhavi Mudra Sambhavi Mudra is stairway to heaven. You are now familiar with how a human being functions. You know that we are subject to condensation of energy into matter, which eventually leads to our consciousness in the tailbone. Of course, it is not that one-dimensional, it is a dynamic process, fluctuating up and down between levels of consciousness, but the tendency is downwards. Caused by tamas. Everything we have done so far in yoga is designed using rajas in a very measured way, which means rajas leaning towards sattva, is designed to counter the downfall, to counter the process of manifesting into matter caused by tamas. As human beings, we are simply subjected to this process of downfall, slavishly, as victims, so to say. However, human being is blessed with consciousness, although for many people it appears to be a mixed blessing. But when we consciously decide to start taking control, it truly becomes a blessing, and the only creature in this world to have the ability to reverse the downfall is the human being. Sambhavi Mudra is a crucial exercise, a very important exercise in your development. It is actually a very sophisticated exercise that, if you follow the logic of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, is very advanced and should be introduced somewhere down the road on a very advanced level. But Sambhavi Mudra is too important to postpone. So far, we have reversed the process of downfall with asana practice. We have reversed the process of downfall with pranayama. We have also yama and niyama are involved in this process. But everything we have done so far were kind of random exercises that do generate Shakti, countering the increasing condensation. You go against that increasing condensation. This has translated, you have recognized this, consciously or subconsciously, as feeling light. You feel lighter, you feel more energized, you become more positive. It transforms the way you think, the way you function, the way you feel. That is the result of the reversal of the downfall process. The downfall process, as you remember, leads to inertia, inactivity, darkness, depression. And those are the main diseases of mankind. Negativity. Reversing this process truly leads to another human being with a whole different outlook on themselves and their environment. Sambhavi Mudra is introduced because it gives you a very concentrated, effective way to force energy, and with energy your consciousness, up to Ajna Chakra. So it is called the stairway to heaven. Because heaven is not somewhere there above the clouds, and hell is not somewhere deep inside the earth where there is magma and lava and fire. Hell is the condition of inertia, of darkness, depression. Heaven is energy flowing, positive thought, positive actions leading to more positivity, happiness, bliss, joy. And those qualities are found on the higher levels of your being, starting above the diaphragm. Above the diaphragm we still have desires and emotions, but we call them higher desires and higher emotions. Below the diaphragm, we have what we call lower desires and emotions. In general, you can call the lower desires and emotions more instinctive, related to survival, related to fulfilling your most basic needs, the most basic needs of the human being, including, of course, the survival of the human race, which is driven by procreation. Above the diaphragm in the heart you find compassion. Still an emotion, still a desire, but it is of a higher nature, and we can consider that to be a positive positive desire or positive emotion. So we call it higher emotion, higher desire. We are living in the world of duality, and as long as we are subject to higher desires, lower desires, we will remain unstable. There will be no sattva, no harmony. So after rising above the diaphragm, which, if it is correct, has taken place during the basic course, that you develop heart consciousness. Surely most of you had that already, but it has become more solidified, more established, functioning more away from below the diaphragm, functioning more from the heart. It is time to rise above the throat. The body has the being has two glass ceilings. The first glass ceiling is at the diaphragm. The most of mankind is the point of gravity of mankind's consciousness is below the diaphragm. With our yoga practice, we have come to break through that glass ceiling, functioning more and more above the diaphragm from the heart, and less below the diaphragm. The throat has another glass ceiling, which Sambhavi Mudra, for one thing, and your concentration, of course, on nada, are very powerful tools to also break through the glass ceiling of the throat level. And the combination of the two, Sambhavi Mudra preceding Dharana or Nada, are very powerful tools to bring consciousness from below the diaphragm, from below the throat, to Ajna Chakra, where there are no emotions, no lower nor higher emotions or desires. If you do this regularly, if you practice regularly, you truly, more and more, fix your point of gravity of consciousness in Ajna Chakra and the Crown Chakra as a result. This does not mean that you never function below the diaphragm anymore. The position or the statement that I made that the majority of mankind the point of gravity of the majority of mankind's consciousness is below the diaphragm. I said that. That doesn't mean that people don't function from the heart or in Ajna Chakra. But overall, people function below the diaphragm, and there are moments that people function on another level. You are a very dynamic, even fickle ball of energy that is fluctuating up and down. But the point of gravity in most people lying below the diaphragm. As a spiritual person, practicing longer and longer, more and more, over a longer period of time, the switch is taking place that you're more and more functioning above the throat. But surely, you're just a human being, even more than others. You are purely human, and you will still function below the diaphragm. And especially as a yogi, this can put you into serious trouble, much more than normal people, because you have not only become super sensitive, you have also become super conscious of what is going on. And the slightest disturbance, while other people live day and night with disturbances, small and big, the slightest disturbance disrupts you, hurts you. And interestingly, this will lead you to wanting to be more and more in Ajna Chakra. Every time you become confronted with those disruptions that are normal for other people but not anymore for you, you resolve to practice meditation more regularly. From experience, I can tell you not to worry. Just keep practicing. Sometimes every day, sometimes twice a day, and sometimes you have periods that you do not have so much room to practice regularly. But if you keep yourself occupied, busy, over the years to come, the decades to come, the center of gravity of your consciousness will become established in Ajna Chakra. Eventually also without continuing practice. While in the beginning it is a fickle process of up and down. And especially when you practice you feel really great and you're really, your condition is changed. And then if you don't practice you will easily fall back down again. But with time you're more and more established on the level of Ajna Chakra and leading, of course, to more and more functioning from the intuition, from the heart. Soul consciousness also, developing insight in your destiny, knowing where to go, truly to go with your life and in your life. Sambhavi Mudra, therefore, is introduced at the end of the basic course. It is too important to wait longer. And when you understand Sambhavi Mudra is regarded as one of the big secrets in yoga, and it is surrounded by mystery and secret technique that you must meet your special master who will initiate you and what have you. Like everything else in yoga is described symbolically, and you know Sambhavi Mudra with the fingers covering all the senses, telling us very nicely how to practically go about the exercise and make it a truly powerful exercise at that. So, we have actually in the past found our master who initiated us into the secrets of Sambhavi Mudra, and that master or that man was Yogi Swami Yogi Anand from Kathmandu. Old man with a long beard and a playfulness and a humor like a little child. So refreshing and amazing. So in the handout you have read the anecdote, story of Swami Yoga Anand. I will not tell the whole story of Swami Yoga Anand, but just repeat again how Sambhavi Mudra is practiced. You know from the basic course that the fingers touch the senses, and you know also that these senses are each related to the functioning of the chakras. The Karmendriya of Muladhara Chakra is the smell. Remember? The Snanandriya, Snana is knowledge. So those are the functioning of the senses. The Snanandriya of Muladhara Chakra is the nose. Wait, I'm mixing them up now. The Snanandriya of Muladhara Chakra is the smell, is the sense. Snana is knowledge. The Karmendriya is, of course, excretion. That is the organ, the subtle organ of action. That is excretion. So the chakras are, the functioning of the chakras are related to the senses. Each of the senses are represented. 5 senses, 5 chakras below Ajna Chakra. Muladhara chakra is the nose, the smell, and so therefore it is covered. The eyes are covered, which is the fire. The ears are covered, which is the throat. The lower lips are covered, being water, and the upper lips being the heart. I mean, all over the world, people, without knowing what they are doing, when they are indignified, they stick up their middle finger. There is no coincidence there. And the middle finger is covering the nose. And try to capture this emotion that you feel when you feel the need to stick up your finger. That is haughtiness. Your chest swells up and you think, what the hell is this? Or who the hell are you? I'm better than you. That's pride. Instead of using the word haughtiness, simply pride. It's very interesting to play with this. Pride is a very powerful tool to let the energy from the very lowest level of your being rise up. It causes an immediate whirl of energy, which is Shakti, and will rise up. Now, if you look at Sambhavi Mudra, I had this realization over time, several times, deeply touching upon the essence of what is going on here. If it is correct, while you grew up as a child, you have gone through Sambhavi Mudra. Pride, for example, a child that grows up in a healthy, stable, secure environment will at some point engage in sports, competition. Your parents will make you a member, will register you at the local sports club, track and field, or handball, or soccer, or swimming. And you compete. All year you train, and several times a year you have competition. And sometimes you win. What happens when you win? Pride occurs. Sambhavi Mudra, but in a very natural way. If you grow up to become a well-balanced adult, physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy and balanced, you have gone through this process. You have also benefited from engaging in competition and, without knowing it, building this power of letting energy rise from Muladhara chakra. Sambhavi Mudra as a technique is very, very, very efficient. Instead of doing all kinds of different things, you grab the bull by the horns, you come immediately to what it is all about, and that's pride. Just think of how you feel when you victored, how do you say, when you won in competition. And if you have not engaged in sports, you will have other elements of your life in which you excel. A high score on your report, your scorecard, or outstanding performance in playing chess, or something not physical sports, but more intellectual or so, everybody has had its moments of victory. It's very helpful if you just remember that feeling of winning. And if you can't do that, or if you find that difficult, you instill pride in yourself by knowing that you are good at something. It is that feeling like, just wait and see, I will show you something. You wave your fist and you say, just wait and see, I will show you something. The thing with Sambhavi Mudra is that you must honestly, sincerely immerse yourself in that feeling. Like a true actor. It's a little bit funny to do this, but considering that it is so powerful, it is really worth losing or immersing yourself in that process. Because it won't work if you're skeptical and you're thinking of something related to pride, and actually you're just smiling and not believing it, and just kind of half-baked playing with the concept. It won't work. You must truly give yourself into doing this. The water center, Swadhisthana Chakra, that is the center of emotions, greed and jealousy. The water center is stimulated by beauty. Having come to Korea, I'm truly missing a very important element of Dutch culture. Korean people know. When they hear that I came from the Netherlands, invariably they will say, oh, tulips. And windmills, of course. But tulips is always the first. Holland is a country of flowers. And while each shopping center has one bakery, one butcher, one supermarket and one bookstore, there are 4 or 5 stalls or shops with flowers and plants. So much money Dutch people spend on flowers. And almost every home you enter, there will be a fresh bunch of flowers on the coffee table or on the chimney. How do you call this thing in your house? Or somewhere, and some people have 2 or 3 bunches of fresh flowers. And almost always when we visit people, we first pass by the flower shop, buy a big bunch of colorful flowers, and present them upon entering the home. And magic occurs when you are being confronted with a nice bunch of flowers. It melts you. And in particularly, it melts you on the level of the water. Swadhisthana Chakra. Swadhisthana Chakra is the seat of the self, Sva. It is where you realize it is where you develop inside in yourself. You know that it's the chakra that develops between the age of 8 and 14. It is the time where you develop your identity, where you start becoming conscious of your existence. And conflicts in Holland are often solved also by presenting the person you have a conflict with a bunch of flowers. And I think in Korea you have to drink soju and eat samgyeopsal to break the ice, and then there is room for conversation on a friendly level. In Holland it is a bunch of flowers and maybe a box of chocolates or cigars, and then a very nice, cozy atmosphere occurs in spite of the terrible conflict you had before. You sit around the table, you're melting inside because of all this beauty, and you can talk in a very amicable, reasonable way and solve the problem. And no surprise, I always use a flower for Svadhisthana chakra when I practice Sambhavi Mudra. I picked a flower, typical flower. It's called a dahlia. It's not the small dahlia with just a small number of leaves, petals. It's a dahlia that looks more like like a lotus flower. It is a big bulb with hundreds of petals, very velvety texture, very nice, deep wine color. And I remember having those at my balcony. It's the reason why the cushions were ordered in wine red. I remember having these flowers at my balcony. I was watering them and I looked at it and I was deeply enchanted. And that image is still in my mind and I use it every time. For the concept of artistry, because that is what we're talking about, beauty, in fact, you can use anything. You could even use a person. But it is best to pick something, and this is the danger with Sambhavi Mudra. You are playing with memories, playing with imagination concepts that will trigger all kinds of unrelated thoughts. No, they are related thoughts, but they are not desirable. Because you want to stay with the feeling of pride, you want to stay with the feeling of beauty. And suddenly you find yourself going back in time and thinking of something that happened at that time. For example, when you won in a competition, you suddenly are distracted by the people that were there, or something related to that issue that is not important in your practice of Sambhavi Mudra. If you choose a beautiful person for artistry, for this concept, you very easily get lost in other thoughts related to that person. But that can also apply to a flower. When you use flower as a concept, it can lead to memories entering somebody's home or your own home. So this is a little bit tricky thing you have to pay attention to and try to avoid. In the same way as that you were confronted with building pride as a child in competition, you have probably made trips with your school and your parents to a museum. They have guided you and taught you about art. The purpose of art, the purpose of painting on your wall, statues spread around your house, is in fact this stimulation of Svadhisthana chakra to instill sense of beauty in you. in your environment. So, people who understand this, they will put pieces of art in their homes. And you see, I've been in quite some homes of the richest people in Korea, and it is truly so that every part you go, even in the toilet, in the restroom, there is something of beauty. Those people basically live in, they created their own heaven. If you understand this, with time, if you have room for it and afford it, it doesn't have to be too expensive, by the way, but you can acquire some pieces of beauty and put them in your home. But you must be very careful not to cause overstimulation. Put just one thing on the wall and not 5 or 6. Anyway, this is something. I haven't come to this for years in Korea because I've kind of living out of a suitcase. And only since last year or so, since I got Korean nationality, I felt finally, after 16 years being here, able to settle. But over time, I will follow my own advice and put some nice things of beauty here and there, and maybe even buy some flowers now and then. Although in Korea they're unreasonably expensive, unfortunately. Okay. Long stories about 2 concepts. I'm going to keep the other 3 a little bit shorter. What is important, and that is why I elaborated so much, is that you feel what this is about. The 3rd concept, anyway, is the simplest of all, because it is related to ego. And ego is very easily stimulated simply by imagining somebody calling your name. When people require your attention and you're looking in the wrong direction, they call out your name. And very interestingly, when your name is called, your spine immediately erects. Your eyes become big, and you look in the direction where your name was called from. Direct stimulation, direct effect on Manipura chakra, the fire center, the chakra with the most fickle but also the most brilliant energy. And that is also why it is called the city of jewels, Manipura. This is, maybe together with pride, this is the easiest chakra to stimulate in the process of Sambhavi Mudra. The 4th chakra is stimulated, is the heart chakra, of course, Anahata, stimulated with a sense of loyalty, faithfulness. When people vow to stay together for the rest of their lives, for better or worse, they put a golden ring around the left ring finger. I've understood that there are cultures where they put it on the right ring finger, and these days in Europe and probably also in America, people stubbornly put it on the right ring finger just because everybody puts it on the left ring finger just to be rebellious. But the reason why it should be on the left ring finger is because the left ring finger is connected with the heart, and the right ring finger is not. Gold and any other precious metal and precious stones as well are inherently sattvic. Gold is inherently sattvic. That is why it is a precious metal. And maybe people in the modern time we live in have lost the real meaning of gold. They only think of gold as being valuable in terms of money, but there is a reason why gold became coveted. Ancient people were much more sensitive than modern people because their intellect was not developed and they relied solely on feeling, intuition. They were much more sensitive to the influences of, for example, precious metal, precious stones. And that is how gold became very valuable in terms of money. But its true value is that it harmonizes. It stimulates, in fact, faithfulness in a person. And this is, of course, on a subtle level that most people are simply not aware of. But it does. The advice here is maybe not really related to Sambhavi Mudra, but more related to the use of superficial sattva-inducing jewelry. The advice is to not use gold on a permanent basis because it will numb you for the effects of it. So in the past, people used their jewelry only on special occasions. On special occasions, they would bring out their treasury box and dress themselves up in nice, beautiful clothes, colorful, and put in their earrings and whatever, what have you. And after the special event, they would all go back into the box again until next time. In the same way, in ancient times, drugs and, well, alcohol is also a drug, but drugs in the form of mind-altering substances made out of herbs and plants and alcohol, smoking, tobacco, those were not all-day occurrences. Those things were done on special occasions and often related to spiritual rituals. And for the rest of the time, those substances were not used. Anyway, just for your information. The throat chakra is the chakra of expression. And that is expression on all levels of your being. When you think of expression, you think, of course, of speech, but on subtler levels, human beings do not only communicate by speech. On the contrary, speech is only a very poor way of trying to put into words what you really feel. There is body language, there is communication without expression, direct expression. Even in thoughts, you communicate with other people, you convey. It is the most complicated of all chakras. Because language is simply inadequate to express the complexity of your emotions and thoughts. to stimulate the throat chakra, Vishuddhi chakra, you use the concept of solidity. The Jnanendriya of the throat chakra is the hearing, the ears, which you cover with your thumbs. The thumb is the biggest and strongest link on your hand. And you simply use the concept of that solidity, the strength, the solidity, to stimulate the throat chakra. I use the concept of a big boulder, a rock, and I try to feel the essence of that rock, its age. I try to imagine those millions of years that it has been standing there, battered by storm, rain, thunder, lightning, and it is still standing there, strong and firm. Solidity. On a more personal level, you can use to stimulate solidity. I haven't actually explained the heart chakra very much, but it is kind of similar. Loyalty. Loyalty to a person is tricky because it leads to distractions in terms of emotions, memories you have with a person, conflicts possibly. But loyalty is a form of solidity. And I always use for the heart chakra, not a person, but I use yoga as something that I'm loyal to. I'm very loyal to yoga, more than anybody else. I refuse to compromise and present yoga as practical and direct as it is, without dogmas, without consideration of ego, for example, status. I am passionately loyal to yoga because it has helped me so much, and it is helping so many other people if only presented in the right way. And that is what I'm doing. And that is inherently, that thought and that determination is inherently solid as well. It's loyal and it is solid as well. Can you feel that? If you have already found your Dharma is a very grateful subject for the stimulation of the heart chakra and also the throat chakra. The throat chakra, a little bit more specified. Loyalty, very great tool, which you use for the heart, but also your stubbornness, kind of. Stubbornness in doing what you have chosen to do. In spite, and this is again, comes back to loyalty, but it also comes, if you make the link, if you see the link, it also comes back to pride, the Muladhara chakra. But especially people who are on the spiritual path, people who practice yoga, they develop a much clearer sense of self. and they start following that sense of self more and more. And people around you, people who know you since long time ago, family, friends and so on, they notice the differences. They see that you are behaving differently. And it happens that they don't agree with that. They start to worry. They are still driven by fear, while you have risen far above that. And they will say, what the hell are you doing these days? Don't you know that this or that can happen? Shouldn't you better have a career or something, or get married and start a family or something? And you say, no, I can do that later. I have something much more important to do. And they say, you are not like you were before anymore. It is this determination to follow your heart that stimulates solidity in you, in the throat chakra. You put your foot down, that kind of feeling. I don't care what you guys say. It's my choice, my life, and I know where I'm going. I'm not led by fear like you are. You don't say that literally to them, you feel that. You feel that, you put your foot down. It's my life, my choice, and I know where it is going. Stay out. Solidity. Let's have a short break.